Hi, welcome to this edition of Digital Discoveries. Now, in the past, in Digital Discoveries, we've talked about looking at programs or apps or equipment and looking at it in a way that it does multiple things. In other words, you don't just buy a poetry program just to make poetry. Can you do other things with it? For instance, can you write a journal entry for a science lab using that same poetry program? And so today we're going to be talking about mapping programs and seeing, is there some things that you can do in mapping programs that aren't just for geology, excuse me, going around the world looking at some things. Can you integrate them into other kinds of courses? And so let's look at some programs. Today we're going to look at one program in particular, Apple Maps. But what we're doing in Apple Maps can also be done on other programs such as Google Maps. And I think we talked about Google Earth in an earlier episode. So if you're familiar or comfortable with Google Earth, use Google Earth. If you happen to have an iPad, you have a program called Apple Maps on it. And Apple Maps is actually a new program. It started off, it had some really bad publicity because some of the maps were kind of goofied up. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at the new Apple Maps and show some things that you can do in your classes with it. So let's go ahead and pop right into Apple Maps. So here we go. And we're going to get it so we can see. And so what Apple Maps does immediately is that it finds where you're located using the Wi-Fi network, or if you have one of those fancy iPads, it actually looks. So we're here, right here at the Professional Development Center in EPISD on Boeing Street. And so that's where that little blue dot's going to be. But we don't want to stay there. We want to go look at for some interesting places. So one of the places that we want to go look at, just to kind of give you an idea of what you can show your class, is let's start out at Hoover Dam in Nevada. It's right near Las Vegas. And maybe, for instance, you're talking about the waterways of the United States. You might be talking in history class about the building of the Hoover Dam, and you'd actually like to show your class what the Hoover Dam looks like beyond just what it looks like in a book. Because a book is usually very static, a two-dimensional type thing. So the first thing you want to do is you want to type in a search. So I've already kind of done that. So I'm going to pop in Hoover Dam, and what it does is it gives us a satellite view. You can actually even look at two different things. There's this hybrid view which will pop down major roads and things like businesses, but we're really not interested so much in that. We're going to look at just the satellite view. So you can see that I've got a bunch of dots there because there's a bunch of dots that say Hoover Dam. So we want to find the one that's the one we're looking for. And so it's actually this one way over here that says Hoover Dam. And the reason I could figure that out is because it's on a river. And so it makes sense that there's something on a river. So we're going to zoom in. So now I'm going to start zooming in, and all I have to do to zoom in is start pinching outward. I spread my fingers and I start pinching outward. And if I do it slowly, what happens is you can see that the map starts redrawing itself with different satellite images. And the closer I get in, the more detail the maps become. You can actually see how it's rewriting itself right here. So I'm zooming in, and anybody that's familiar with Hoover Dam can understand that that's pretty much Hoover Dam. So down in the lower left-hand corner is a little icon that looks like buildings. You can see that in the lower left-hand corner there. And that building is where the power of Apple Maps comes in, at least for showing students things in class. And so everybody's kind of familiar with this kind of two-dimensional overview satellite picture of places like Hoover Dam. But I bet the kids have never seen a three-dimensional view of Hoover Dam, and that's where the power of this program really comes in. So if I click on that little button down there, you can see immediately that I kind of switch to a three-dimensional view. And so I'm going to zoom in again to zoom in. Let me show you that little, how that looks. You just spread your fingers out like this to zoom out. And so I'm going to zoom out and get a little bit closer to Hoover Dam. And then I can actually manipulate the program around. I can actually twist the program around using my fingers. I'm using a double double finger thing here. Maybe we can pop up a picture of me so I can kind of show you what that looks like. You're just grabbing it and you're like doing like that. You're using two-finger motion. And then to zoom in, you go like that. And then, of course, to zoom out, you'd pinch it. So there's spreading and pinching. Those are what you do to get closer or far away. And then to rotate around, you use two fingers. So this whole program uses two-finger motion. So let's go back here. We got Hoover Dam. And so I can actually kind of do like a flyover, like I'm in a helicopter over Hoover Dam. And all I'm doing is I'm just spreading, I'm just twisting my fingers around. And so I can actually, then I can actually slide up and down. And let's pop that picture of me back up again here real quick. If I slide my fingers up and down on the screen, that rotates the picture up and down like that. So then I can let me show you really quick. I'm going to zoom up and down like that. And you can see that as I do that, I can go from completely overhead, like a straight down shot, to like that, and all I'm doing is I'm just going up and down like that. So those are the three really commands that you need to know about about Apple Maps, is that you pinch and spread and use your two fingers to rotate around, go up and down. Okay, so let's look again here at Hoover Dam. I'm going to zoom in, and for anybody that's ever been on that road to Hoover Dam, you should be pretty familiar with that. I can actually zoom in to Hoover Dam, and you can see here I'm actually even flying under that bridge. I'm flying under the bridge to Hoover Dam, and as I do, the pictures get even more detail. So you can see that I am like just an incredible. Now I'm going to zoom back from that bridge, and you can see that as the pictures rewrite themselves, I have this kind of grid thing. And if I just hang on for a second or two, the pictures actually will rewrite themselves, and they load those new satellite images in. So this is some pretty cool technology that is available to our students. So that's Hoover Dam. That's a pretty cool place to start. So that's a very impressive place to start using Apple Maps. So let's go to another place here. Another place that we might be interested in is the Grand Canyon. So, you know, we talk about the Grand Canyon. Maybe we're doing a unit on the Grand Canyon, but the students may have never been to the Grand Canyon. They might see pictures of it. Well, you can actually go to the Grand Canyon. So here's the Grand Canyon. I typed in Grand Canyon National Park. It takes me there. And so it gives you a little bit of information about the Grand Canyon National Park, how far it is from where my bookmark is, which is where I'm at. It's 423 miles from here. So now I'm going to zoom in. So the Grand Canyon has some pretty beautiful vistas. And there again, right on that same river that the Hoover Dam was on. And so again, I'm going to just zoom in on those canyons there. And you can see that as I move my fingers around up and down, I can actually rotate my space around, and I can fly down the Grand Canyon. I can actually take my students on a trip down the Colorado River. You know, they always say that there's rapids in the Colorado River. Well, I can actually zoom in, and I think if I did that right, I'm actually looking at the rapids of the Grand Canyon. So that's some pretty awesome technology right there. So here I am, and I'm just zooming down the Grand Canyon, down the Colorado River. So that's a pretty impressive technology. And again, at any time I can just turn off the 3D, just pinch out, and it gives me kind of an overview of where I'm at in a global perspective. Okay, so that's right around the Grand Canyon. Everybody's familiar with the Grand Canyon, where it's at, how beautiful it is. I can zoom in again. There's some pretty impressive vistas there at the Grand Canyon. Everybody's familiar with it. Now you might be asking, well, how do they make these images? How do they make these three-dimensional images? And that's something that our science teachers might want to know about, is that a satellite's flying over the Earth taking pictures straight down. And so if you would take a picture straight down, you're going to get a straight down image. But what our satellites do to make this type of 3D image is that they also, when they zoom back over around the Earth, they take an image at 45-degree angles. And so they take an image at 45-degree angles all the way around when they zoom around. Then they post all these things together. And so I'm going to hopefully show you the proof that they take them at different times when they're flying around. So let's go to another place. Let's see. You know, in the news we got a new pope, and in the Catholic Church, you know, made worldwide news. And so maybe we want to take our students to Rome, Italy, maybe to the Vatican. Well, let's pop in Rome. So I typed in Rome, Italy. There it is on a regular map. And you can see that's, I can zoom farther out, of course, and see the whole country of Italy. You know, this is one of those technologies where I could say to myself, man, I wish I had this when I was in school, because this is like some really cool stuff. All the maps of Rome and all the maps of Italy when I was growing up, they'd say, it looks like a boot. And so this is like so much better than just looking at something that looks like a boot. So here I've got Rome. And Rome looks like a pretty packed in type of city there. And so when it gets fuzzy like that, see right now it's a little fuzzy, so I wait for it to redraw. And so when it redraws, it comes up a little bit more detail. And so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. There I can see the Colosseum of Rome. I can see the Colosseum. That's probably the most famous place in Rome. And so just to show the kids, if you're ever talking about the Roman era, you're talking about the Romans, I can then go look at the Colosseum. And there it is. And so I'm in my little helicopter, my virtual helicopter. I can actually even fly around and I'm just using my two fingers, and I'm swishing them around. And so there's the Colosseum in Rome. Isn't that pretty impressive? And so you can find all kinds of things, of course. You could find anything that's near Rome. I could type in the Vatican City. Vatican City. It'll pop that in. St. Peter's Square, that's where we saw all those pictures on the news the other night. And so I can zoom in here and put in a 3D picture, and look at that. So there I have the exact same place that the students just saw on the news. I can zoom in, and there it is. I can actually pop around that, look around, I can zoom out, I can zoom in. It's like they're actually standing right there in St. Peter's Square, and I can zoom in, I can zoom out. Some pretty impressive technology there. So you can actually take your students to a place that's in the news. You can actually show them a place. Now, Apple Maps at this point doesn't have every single city in the world on its 3D like that. You got to look around. It's got lots of major cities though: New York, Rome, London, those kinds of the big cities like that. San Francisco, Los Angeles. It's one of those things you just got to play with to find out where the big 3D things are. But I wanted to show you something very interesting. You might think El Paso isn't going to be on there. So what happens when we do look at El Paso? So let's look. El Paso. And so it's going to look for El Paso, Texas, and there it is. Of course, it's got a little blue dot. That's where we are. But I want to look at El Paso. Now, El Paso itself, it's going to redraw here, become a little bit clearer, I think. You can actually see the Rio Grande River and Juarez and El Paso. Now, El Paso itself doesn't have that 3D look and feel like those other places that I just took you. However, the Franklin Mountains do. So if you're ever doing something about the geology of the area, you can look at the Franklin Mountains. And so I'm looking at a three-dimensional view of the Franklin Mountains. And I can actually even fly over the Franklin Mountains with our maps here. So here we are. And I can even zoom in and go back to McElligin Canyon. And look at that. There's the amphitheater in McElligin Canyon, right there in our Apple Maps. And so you can actually, that's pretty good detail. You know, it's like you're not going to see individual people probably walking around, but you will see cars, you will see some things. So that's what McElligin Canyon looks like right here in El Paso. And so if you were up on top of the mountain, you could be showing your students some of the fault lines that are in the Franklin Mountains. We do have a fault line that's going right through the middle of the Franklin Mountains. A lot of people don't know that, and it's right up there. I challenge you to find it. But you can actually, that's a view from the west side of El Paso, looking around, looking east. And the mountains will even, you can even like fly over the mountains. Let's see. Woo, whoops. I'm going to fly over the mountains there. And you can even find things like Trans Mountain Road if you were interested in going over Trans Mountain Road. There's Trans Mountain Road in the northeast. I can flip it over and zoom in and fly along Trans Mountain Road. And again, as I zoom in, it actually redraws itself for more detail. So that's kind of thing to do with these mapping programs. Now again, Apple Maps is one. There's Google Maps. Google Maps actually has entire lesson plans written on how to integrate maps into your lessons. And don't think that it's just a social studies history type of thing. If you're in literature, you can go to the places that the literature talks about. If they're talking about London, you can actually go to London. If they're talking about where somebody was born, Shakespeare, you can actually go to Stratford-on-Avon and see where Shakespeare hung out and was born and all that kind of stuff. You can actually go see the Rome, you can actually go see all those things that we talk about in not only history, but also in literature, also in math sometimes, and even in science. And so I want you to, when you're looking at a program like Apple Maps, what you're actually looking for is to see, can I use this kind of program for more than just one type of curricular area? Can I integrate this into multiple curricular areas? And in this kind of program, these mapping programs, yes, you can. So play with it. Find, if you don't have an iPad with Apple Maps, start exploring Google Maps. Google Maps even has more robust things in it. It actually goes down to Street View, which is very interesting. So thank you for joining me for this edition of Digital Discoveries. We'll see you next time.